Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. This podcast is dedicated to the millions of family caregivers who want wellness tips and self-care solutions, who seek expert advice, and who want news about healthy aging and how to create well home design in our forever homes. I'm Sherri Snelling, a corporate gerontologist, author, and educator, a TV interviewer, host, and news commentator. I'm joining you from Southern California, where our interviews and news take us all across the country to explore the many ways to help you on your caregiving journey and to lift you up here at Caregiving Club On Air. Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. I'm your host, Sherri Snelling. And for this November episode, which we are going to focus on National Family Caregiver Month, we have so much to share with you. We're going to give you a sneak preview of our holiday gift guide, which is why we don't have an expert interview for this episode, because we wanted to be able to focus on giving you some of the insights on that gift guide and getting that out so you can take advantage of those Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales that are already starting. First, we're going to talk a little bit about caregiver wellness news. We're going to talk about the newest study that just came out from the National Alliance for Caregiving and AARP called Caregiving in the U.S., showing us that we now have 63 million family caregivers. We're going to tell you what an increase that is over the last decade and what we need to start thinking about. We're also going to talk about the sandwich generation and how there was a latest survey put out that showed that the sandwich generation has more credit card debt than any other group, and a lot of that is because of caregiving on both sides for both younger children as well as for older parents or in-laws or grandparents. And then there was also a survey done on men who are caregivers and their mental health. How do they manage that? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, I want to do a shout out for November 1st, National Author Day, to my fellow authors in caregiving, as well as authors in caregiver wellness and self-care, brain health, aging, longevity, the business of longevity. So we'll do a quick shout out to all of those great authors. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to do a preview of the holiday gift guide. We have something new this year. We're going to let you know which products can qualify for an employer benefit under your FSA or your HSA benefit, which is really interesting and new. And that's something that a lot of these products in age tech and care tech are going for. So we'll identify that. And then I'll also share, because I've had many, many emails about this from last year, where I included my go bag, my caregiver wellness go bag. We're going to talk a little bit about that go bag and have that kind of as a separate conversation. And then well home design news. Recently we had our daylight savings changeover where we gained an hour, but unfortunately that circadian rhythm disruption does have some negative health impacts. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about what your sleep posture means about your stress levels. That's a really interesting one. And then finally, we're going to talk about something called respite care. Some of you have heard of it. We're going to explain it. Where can you get it? What does it cost? Can you get it for free? And then we're also going to talk about something you may not know about called respitality. And those are all really great things to know, particularly as we go into the stressful holidays. We all need a little break and a little me time. So we want to focus on that. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at our caregiver wellness news. So for our caregiver wellness news, I want to start with the great study that came out from the National Alliance for Caregiving and AARP. And by the way, this particular study called Caregiving in the U.S. comes out every 5 years. So 2025, here we have it. And it is a wonderful historical record of, all the past surveys and studies, but also shows us the growth and the changes that we're having in our caregiver population. So let me tell you the latest. First of all, I don't know if it's startling, but it is very interesting information we all need to pay attention to. And that is that we now have 63 million family caregivers in the U.S. Now, that is 20 million more people than 10 years ago. So it's about a 45% increase and pretty significant. So it's showing us that more and more of us, of course, are going into caregiving roles The sandwich generation makes up almost 1/3 of all of those caregivers, and that would, of course, be those people who are caring for both children as well as an older loved one, like a parent or an in-law or grandparent, and get squeezed in the middle. So we focus a lot on the sandwich generation. They're about 29% of that total caregiver population. We also know that it's remained steady that 61% of caregivers are women and 39% are men. That's pretty stable from the last surveys that we've seen. We also know that 7 in 10 caregivers are working, and we know that almost half, 47%, have reported negative financial impact because of their caregiving duties. And, we talk a lot about the costs of care. I'm going to mention that in a little bit because I was just on a really great radio show talking about costs of care, but that's a big part of it. And then we get into the emotional side, right? 1 in 4 family caregivers feel all alone. This is something I've heard now for over 20 years being in this space. And there are many reasons for it, and there are many ways for us to combat that. But if you know you're one of 63 million, you're definitely not alone. And what we want to do is make sure that you understand both how to create your own care circle around you that supports you, but also all of the different resources and things that are out there that can help you on your caregiving journey, and certainly creating more caregiver-friendly workplaces, which is something I do a lot of work with employers. So this is a lot of focus of our educational series and our workshops and our trainings to really have caregiving be normalized and not be stigmatized, and be something that all employees feel that they can share what they're going through. And most of us are going to be in this role, particularly for an older loved one. But, we, as you know, from my Me Time Monday book, I talk about Gen C, Generation Caregiver. And really, we're in a caregiving role throughout our lives. It could be friends, it could be spouse or partner, it could be children, it could be a sibling, it could be parents or grandparents or in-laws. But it happens throughout our lives. So for us to think that we may not be in this role is not probably legitimate. Because the reality is that we are going to serve that role, but we are also learning things throughout our lives on how to play that role and how to develop those care circles around us. So that's kind of a really important part of our care workshops and things. Now, there was also a survey that came out. It was really interesting. It was just a local survey. So it wasn't done on any kind of a national basis, although what they did is they pulled from national studies that had been done on men as caregivers. And as we saw, almost 4 out of 10 primary family caregivers are men now stepping in to care probably for a parent. But very often when we look at that population of men as caregivers, it's because they are caring for a spouse. And since we know that 66% of all of the people who develop Alzheimer's are women, that does mean that a lot more husbands, a lot more men are probably going to be stepping into that role of caregiver for a wife that may have dementia. But what they did is they kind of took a look at all these different surveys, and then they did this podcast that I listened to, which was really interesting. And it's very similar to a lot of the reports and the things that we see with women caregivers, but I'll just read these statistics to you. So 62% of men report experiencing caregiving as moderate to very stressful. Okay, that's pretty consistent with women. 46% report severe physical strain as caregivers. Now, this is interesting because a lot of men are doing maybe handyman work, or they're helping out shoveling snow or raking leaves or doing things maybe in the yard. They're also lifting and transferring a loved one, which can throw your back out really quickly. So we do see men kind of tend to be in those types of caregiving roles for loved ones, which then makes sense to me when I see this physical strain. Whereas on the other side, a lot of women have a lot more emotional strain because we're kind of absorbing what's happening with our loved ones. We're taking that in. We're trying to fix things, if you will. Now, one of the things that we know from a study that I wrote about in my first book, which was now over 12 years ago, is that men tend to take a block and tackle approach to caregiving, where they know there is a list of things they have to do for their older loved one. And if they can get it done, they check it off the list and they feel that they've accomplished something. And also, they don't necessarily get into worrying too much about the caregiving that they're providing. The other thing that men do is they do tend to tap into more professional help. So, for instance, if they're working, they will get in-home care sometimes more frequently than women. Now, that same study a few years ago found that women are natural nurturers, okay? But as part of that, we analyze our role as caregivers. And that's where the emotional strain and the burnout comes from, because we're constantly looking at, did we do it right? Was mom or dad happy? Should I have done this? I feel guilt because I missed my son's soccer game. I mean, all of those things play into the role of caregiver, but women take that on, a lot more significantly than men. And, so we need to kind of help each other out. The other thing is, we know men become more depressed over their caregiving role. And part of this is the lack of control. The ability to not cure a disease like cancer or Alzheimer's or fix something is a huge frustration, particularly to our male caregivers. So those are just kind of some interesting insights. What was also interesting is that 84% these men as caregivers said they want more information and help on caregiving topics. Okay, if you're out there listening and you know someone, or you are a man who is caregiving and you're working, ask your employer if they offer what we call the Care Talks, which I do through a network of employers. So every single month, we are sharing really great information. We do a deep dive on resources and tips on how to have conversations and tons of other stuff. But that's one piece of it, right? So getting education through your employer is something that I'm seeing increase a lot. So workplaces are a great place for that. Sometimes you also do have to reach out on your own. So again, if your loved one has a particular disease, if it's multiple sclerosis or ALS or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, all of those nonprofit organizations have not only support groups, but really great education series specific to those diseases. So you can reach out on that. But there is a lot more going on in the workplace, which I'm really excited about, and I'm excited also to be a part of that. Now, the men also reported 14% said that they really didn't feel prepared. Okay, not a big surprise. In fact, that number's a little low. 14%? I would have thought it would have been flipped. It would have been like 86% not prepared. And they want more training for the tasks required of them. And also wish that they had qualified professionals that could teach them on how to manage certain things, maybe like oxygen poles or the proper way to transfer, or the things to watch out for as a disease progresses, like Alzheimer's, all those kinds of things that you can get trained on. So here's the good news. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services have recently approved a benefit that will allow companies to be reimbursed for training family caregivers. Yahoo! Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of activity in this space. There's a lot of companies that do this. They do it either, again, through the employer, through nonprofit organizations, or whatever. We're going to continue to put resources up there. But the good news is that you're going to see a lot more of these trainings. So be on the lookout. If you really feel like you don't have enough information on how to care for your loved one, the rescue is here for you in terms of that training. Now, turning also to your own self-care, because this is, of course, something I have been talking about now for 20 plus years. Now it's everywhere. I kind of felt when I started all of this, self-care was kind of more of the quiet thing in the corner, because we were so focused on just the phenomenon of having an older population that we all had to care for, that was living longer. Now self-care is everywhere, right? So, and that's a good thing. And self-care is something that is vital when you become a caregiver, because you have to maintain your own health, stamina, energy, happiness, joy, in order to be a good caregiver. And there are ways to do that. Sometimes on certain days and certain circumstances, it seems like that's not possible, but believe me, you can do it. But there are some caregiver self-assessment surveys. So being self-aware is something that's important. Some of us do a better job at that than others. But if you really do take a moment and take a pause and say, I am fully burned out, or I'm getting there, or I do feel stressed, and stress can be anxiety, it can be depression and sadness, it can be overwhelming feelings of grief or guilt. All of these things are signs of stress, right? So there are some really good self-care stress assessments for caregivers. I wanted to just, we'll have links on our episode guide pages for you. So if you want to take one of these surveys, see where you fall, see where you score. And boy, if you're off the charts, seek the help you need, whether that's from your own physician, whether it's support groups, friends, family, whatever, getting that respite break we're going to talk about in a minute. So there's a good one that I really like from the American Psychological Association. We're going to have that link. And then the VA has one that was actually based on the American Medical Association, did an assessment 25 or so years ago. They've adapted that. It's a little bit more specific for the caregivers of veterans, but those are both really good assessment tools. Now, there's also an online assessment that you can take from Archangels. I think Archangels. I always get that wrong. Sorry. But we have had them on the podcast. So I'm going to have that podcast link so you can go, listen to that episode, because it's really great. They have a terrific assessment tool on specifically caregiver burnout, and they find some, pretty alarming statistics. For instance, that 52% of caregivers during the pandemic had suicidal ideation, which is frightening. And so we want to make sure that you're getting the help that you need. And so, again, these are just great self-aware tools so that we know where we sit on our stress levels, and then we can start to tackle what we need to do. And now I'm going to move into the sandwich generation, mostly Gen X, although there are the oldest millennials that are also in that sandwich generation as well. But there was an Investopedia survey just done that showed that Gen X, so that is the primary group that is sandwich generation, are carrying the most credit card debt of any demographic group, $10,000 on average, and it's about $3,000 higher than boomers or millennials. So again, the economy is slowly picking up. We're trying to make ends meet, still not probably there where it needs to be. A lot of things are unaffordable, like housing. And so it brings on a lot of stress, and we turn to credit cards, and that's tough. Now, I work with a lot of financial advisor companies, and financial advisors often recommend two options to pay down this credit card debt, because the interest rates are so high. I mean, it's like highway robbery. They can be as high as like 24, 27%. That's insane. So they have two strategies. One's called the snowball strategy, and the other is called the avalanche solution. So think the ski. We're in the season of skiing, right? Winter sports. So the snowball gambit involves paying off the smallest debt first. So if you only have $1,000 on one card, tackle that, get it done, boom, mark it off the list, go after the rest of them. That's the snowball. That's supposed to be, in theory, the easiest way to get yourself out of this cycle of debt. And of course, you don't keep using the card. Either cut it up, put it in the freezer, do whatever, but don't have it in your wallet, don't use it. And that's a big part of getting rid of this debt, right? Because we don't want to keep getting caught in that cycle. And then you can tackle, again, the larger balances on the other cards. Now, the avalanche method focuses on minimizing the interest accrual by paying off the card balance that has the highest percentage interest rate. So if you've got a card that's charging you, and a lot of the department store cards, by the way, are notorious for charging 28, 30% even. I've seen some of them. It's totally insane. Whatever it is you're buying, it's not worth it. Because if you buy it at a certain price, even on sale, just think about it. How long is it going to take you to pay that off? And then you keep, accruing that 30% interest on top of it. You're probably going to pay twice as much for those pants or shoes or whatever it was than you would have normally. And you think you're buying it on sale, but you're really not. And that's the big trick, right? So the avalanche method is to take those highest interest rate cards and pay them off first because you want to just get rid of it. Now, I've also seen people apply for a new card with a very low interest rate and then pay off the other debt with that low interest rate card. And then your debt, you're not going to pay as much interest. So that's another possibility if you're able to get another card. But sometimes if you're maxed out, you may not even be able to apply and get that additional card. And then I mentioned costs of care. As we all know, this is something that is pretty much unknown until you're in the middle of it. Many of us don't know what is the average cost of assisted living or nursing home care or adult day care or bringing in a skilled dementia professional into the home for home care. How many of you can just rattle off the top of your heads what that cost is? So a couple of things. First of all, we've mentioned them before. We're going to keep mentioning them. Genworth and Care Scout have a great online tool. It's called the Cost of Care Survey. They update it every March. So you can find all of the costs I just rattled off. But here's the interesting thing. You can find the average national cost. But, if you live in Iowa, you know that probably Florida, New York, and California costs are higher. So when you take the average, it's making that number look higher for you. Well, this is a brilliant thing that they do. They drill down statewide. So you can go specific to the state where your loved one lives and then find out the national cost. You're going to get a lot closer to reality in terms of your financial planning. But this is something you definitely want to do, whether you're in caregiving right now or not. Go take a look, educate yourself. If you have a financial advisor, you may want to start talking to them about, I think I'm going to probably be digging into my own pocket. I need to talk to my parents about how much they have saved and how much Social Security benefit and other things they have coming in. But if I need to help out, I need to maybe sit down and start planning that, which is really brilliant, right? But I also want to do a shout out to my friend Sean Perry, who is the host of the Senior Zone radio show. He is celebrating his 10th year on the air, which is fantastic. Congratulations, Sean. And he is so wonderful. He has me on every November for National Family Caregiver Month, and we always talk about a different topic. And this year we did tackle the cost of care topic. What does long-term care look like? What does it cost? And then also, how do you have that family conversation? What's the right time? How do you approach it? Who's involved? So I have a link to that particular radio show, and you can stream it and listen to it. It aired on Monday, November 10th, but you can still hear it. And again, just a congratulations to Sean for all the good work that he does with that Senior Zone show. And you can check out other episodes as well. And then I did give you a sneak tease on the preview of our holiday gift guide. We're in our 5th year. I'm so excited. It keeps getting more popular every year. We get a lot of comments. So thank you very much for those who have emailed us saying, thanks, we love this gift or whatever. As you know, we try to break it down into mostly affordable ideas, and we have 3 different categories. Caregiver wellness, that's for you, the caregiver. Older adult wellness, that's for your older loved one, which we now include dementia wellness, if you're caring for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's. And then the 3rd category is well home design. That's just for your sanctuary at home, ideas for that. So we want to be able to have you take advantage of these Black Friday, Cyber Monday that I'm seeing happening now, which I'm recording this in, early November. So we want to get this out to you, which is why I didn't schedule an interview. I wanted to just get this stuff out quickly. We're going to have the holiday gift guide on caregivingclub.com. But we'll also have my video version on our YouTube channel, so you can listen to it as well as read it and see the pretty pictures. And as I mentioned, we got a little twist this year. So we know that 7 out of 10 caregivers are working. And there's something that many of you get through your employer, and it's called a health savings account, or I think it's a FSA. I forget what that stands for. Anyway, but it's where you can purchase certain goods that are approved under these HSA, FSA rules that apply to kind of more of your health or medical for your whole family. It's before tax. So let me just read it. It's a product or service that qualifies for reimbursement through a health savings account or a flexible spending account. That's FSA. And this is through your employer. It indicates that the expense is considered a qualified medical expense, meaning you can use pre-tax dollars from your account to pay for it without incurring taxes on the withdrawal. So, common examples are prescription medications, over-the-counter drugs, medical supplies, and certain medical services like acupuncture or physical therapy. Here's what the exciting thing is. Now it's goods. So, for instance, one of our favorite companies is Joe and Bella. They do the adaptive clothing, and it's so beautiful and fashionable. But it is made for people who have arthritis or colostomy bags, or so many other issues that we don't think about as we get older, and it gets really tough to button our shirts or zip up our pants or do whatever. So Joe and Bella now qualifies for FSA. That's so exciting. And then also Journey Health and Lifestyle, and they have a ton of stuff. We're going to have something in our gift guide from them. It's actually a wonderful bed. These now all qualify as well. So check them out because you can save money on purchasing these things for your loved ones. And then I got a lot of emails, thank you, from you guys on last year. I included what's in my go bag. Now, a go bag for a caregiver is something you have to, you're like the emergency services when you become a caregiver. And I learned kind of the hard way. I'd get the call at 2 a.m. Something was wrong with my mom, got to jump in the car, take her to the ER, sit in the ER for at least 6 hours. Yeah, and those chairs, let me just tell you, I want to do a shout out to every hospital. Please, some more comfortable chairs in your ER waiting rooms. Oh, this is killing our backs. Anyway, I learned to put together a go bag, and it's got things in it like a little neck pillow. It's got a little cardigan sweater and some socks because it can get cold in those waiting rooms. I've got, a additional pair of readers of eyeglasses because if I'm jumping up at 2 a.m., I'm probably not remembering to grab all this stuff. It's got some healthy snacks. It's got, audiobooks, or I like actual tactile books. So I'll have a favorite book in there. And some water, of course, to stay hydrated, a phone charger, anyway, and bacterial wipes, etc. I put this out and you guys really loved it. So I'm going to feature it on our episode guide page, but it is really smart to have one of these. I would also recommend having one for your loved one as well, so that when you go to pick them up for the ER, you can grab that too, but at least have one for yourself. It'll really save you. And, just have it right by the door, or you can have it in your car, wherever you feel is going to be the place that you will remember to have it with you. And then finally, as I mentioned, I want to do a shout out to my fellow authors because November 1st was National Author Day. And there are so many wonderful authors that we have interviewed on this podcast. I am grateful to all of you guys who have been on the podcast sharing your new books with us. And I just wanted to do a little shout out. I'm not going to go through all of them because it would take me a few minutes to read through these, but we're going to have links to everything from the Brain Health Kitchen book, which is Dr. Annie Fenn, to Finding Balance. We just heard from Chanel Rowe, who was on our last episode in October, talking about the spiritual side of caregiving for her mom. Caregiver, a love story, which is beautiful, and a lot about end-of-life caregiving and hospice from Dr. Jessica Zitter. My Dad's Funnier Than Your Dad. That was Tim Conway's daughter, Kelly, came on our podcast, and many, many other good things. So I'm going to share those with you guys, and they make really great holiday gifts and great reads, by the way. And then also just a quick shout out, our Self-Care in 7 Minutes videos are up on our YouTube channel. Go check them out. For November, we did how to learn to let go. Okay, this is a big one for us as caregivers, right? So check that out. It's all based on the Lantern Festival, by the way, if you haven't heard of that. So you can see that. We do a little virtual Lantern Festival during that 7-minute video. We also are doing Finding Ruth, which, by the way, Ruth was my grandmother's name, but it's about Family Stories Month, which is really important. We're all gathering as families. Do you know your family stories? This is a great way to get the generations together and talking. And then we're going to do the gratitude gravy recipe, which I always do for our Thanksgiving, timing. And it's all about the silver linings of caregiving and how to flip that feeling of grief or guilt into gratitude. So you can check all of those out. Now we're going to go into our well home design news. So for our welcome design news, we talk a lot about sleep on this podcast because we know that for family caregivers, sleep is one of those things that definitely gets disrupted. As I mentioned just in the last segment, getting the call at 2 a.m. to rush a parent or, an in-law to the ER is probably not uncommon for a lot of you out there who are family caregivers in the thick of it. That's just one reason that our sleep gets disrupted, but also the anxieties, concerns, just thinking about our day and all the things that we have to juggle, and we're kind of ruminating at night. So, we're just exhausted trying to get it all done, right? So that's why we do focus a lot on sleep, because it also relates to brain health, which we know is super important. And, we have so many episodes and experts that we've interviewed on sleep. We're going to have links to all of those episodes on our episode guide page for this episode. But what I wanted to do is, we just had daylight savings, and I am a person who loves the fall. And I also love the thought of getting something back. So when we gain an hour, I get really excited. But it does disrupt our circadian rhythms. We've got to now adapt our bodies to this new light and dark cycle. One of the things I don't really like about it is it gets darker earlier. I kind of like it when it stays lighter out late at night. So, I'm not getting everything I want, but, it's a surprise, surprise, right? But I did want to talk a little bit about how, we really do have to adapt to those light and dark cycles so that we're not taking away from the restorative sleep that we need. So, going to bed earlier or whatever it is, getting back into the cycle of that light and dark as fast as you can is really important. Now, there was also an article that came out on, I think it was in Real Simple, and it was on sleep postures and stress. And then I went and did some of my own research. So this is a compilation of what they wrote and what, I found in my book, Me Time Monday, and some other things. But it's, our sleep postures very often speak about our stress levels and what we're feeling. So I wanted to kind of take you through this so you could see, okay, yeah, I'm a stomach sleeper, I'm a side sleeper, whatever it is. What does that mean? And what is the optimal way that you should be sleeping, so that, again, you can get quickly into sleep, stay into sleep longer, get that restorative, time for your brain to take care of everything it needs to take care of in your body during night and during sleep. So the first one is the fetal position. So this is where you're kind of all tucked up. Very often, maybe you're sleeping on your side like a little baby, but your knees are drawn up to your chest, your arms are tucked in. This is a very common stress posture, because we go back to the comfort of that fetal position in the womb, where we were warm and protected and felt comforted. And so very often, people who are under high duress stress, you will find that they will nap or sleep in kind of more of that side fetal position. Sometimes even go into that position when they're not sleeping, just to comfort yourself. So that's one. The second one is the stomach sleepers. Okay, so I know a lot of you out there are stomach sleepers. And this is where you're not only stomach sleeping, but your arms are stretched out. It's called the free fall position. Now, this can almost seem like freedom, right? Like hey, you got no worries in the world, you're flying. But actually, this posture has been associated with externalizing stress and the need for control. Very interesting, right? So it's almost like you're embracing the whole bed. Everything in this place is under my control with your arms stretched out. Clenching fists, clenching your jaw, or grinding your teeth. So a lot of people, of course, do this. They have, that TMJ with their jaw. They wake up, there's pain in their mouth because they've been grinding their teeth all night. Or if you're clenching your fists and you wonder why your hands are hurting in the morning, this is the typical fight or flight mode, but you're in fight mode. So you're not fleeing, you're fighting. You're getting your fists ready. You're probably tucked a little bit. You've got the jaw, and you're just ready to rumble. So that's something you should be aware of. Tossing and turning. I will admit, I'm one of these. I've tried to really get it better because I've really, really worked on my sleep health. I've done a million things that I talk about and write about, and I think I'm getting there for sure. But I do still toss and turn at night. But I would say, I was a big boom, boom, back and forth, back and forth, like an Olympic gymnast, bouncing around the bed. Not fun for your sleep partners. But now I'm down to maybe one turn, two turns during the night, depends. But it's a lot better. But if you're tossing and turning, this is where again you're probably anxious. You're anticipatory stress for the next day. You're thinking about the next day. You're thinking about all the stuff maybe that you've got to do, or the time poverty that you have, and how you're going to get it all done. And this leads you to kind of constantly awaken your brain to try to resolve those issues. So you really want to get yourself into that calming mode so that you get all of those things out of your mind. And again, go take a look or listen to some of our episodes with sleep experts. Also, I'm going to put a couple blogs I've written about sleep on the episode guide page, because there's a lot of ways to combat those types of things and help you not toss and turn. And also what can cause tossing and turning, by the way, is restless leg syndrome. A lot of people don't know about this. Typically you can get it at any age. A lot of people do get it after the age of 45, but about 10% of the population has actual restless leg syndrome. But it can become almost painful, but it's just disturbing, and your legs are needing to move, and that movement is creating then the awaking, it's awakening you during the night. So that could be part of it too. So you want to pay attention to that. Talk to your doctor if you feel like you have that. So what is the best? Okay, here it is. Lying on your left side. Okay. So this is how I sleep now. I lie on my left side. Why the left? Okay. It's because it is the best spinal alignment. It eases muscular tension, but it takes the pressure off your internal organs. Somehow on your left side, your organs all fall into the right place, whereas on your right-hand side, they don't. That's why it's a little bit, I've even really focused on this, and it is a little bit more uncomfortable to be on my right side than my left side. And then here's the big one. For those of us who are older, who are having motility problems, that's motility, not mobility. You know what I'm talking about. It's problems. The left side sleeping actually helps move the waste through the colon more efficiently. So that's a big one. But also, it reduces the gastric juices that can create that heartburn. Sometimes if we're back sleepers, you can get more heartburn. Being on your side is going to help prevent that a little bit. So that's a big one. So sleeping on your left side seems to be about the best. Now, stomach sleepers can transition to side sleepers by having a full body pillow. So you still feel like there's something pressed against, your chest and your stomach, where it would have been the mattress. Now it's going to be the pillow. You can still get that. And again, that's something that's very soothing for a lot of people. So you can kind of transition from stomach to side. And then there's also, second best is zero gravity, or what we call the NASA posture. So you're like an astronaut in the aircraft going up, and you are in almost a little bit of a V, a soft V. Your knees are bent, but you're elevated at the head and neck. You're elevated, of course, at the knees. And that is also supposed to be one of the best things for spine alignment, particularly for people who have maybe osteoporosis or arthritis. It alleviates the pressure on the back and the joints. If you've got a lot of neck pain or back pain, try it out, because a lot of people have said, yeah, it really helped. It seemed to, right? Being in a V position kind of all night, soft V, not a big V or a tight V. A wide V kind of thing. But a lot of people said, no, it actually really does work. And then it also can improve circulation and breathing. Now, I will tell you, I tried zero gravity because I have an adjustable bed, one of my favorite things I've ever purchased for myself. But I have an adjustable bed, and it's got a zero gravity button on it. And I did try it for a few nights. I can't do it. And here's why. I'm not a back sleeper because I do have sinus issues. And my sinuses drain at night. I know that sounds all really fun, but being on my side really helps me out. I can't breathe as well when I'm on my back. So that's just something that, again, we all have to personalize all these things to ourselves and what we have. But those are just some things to think about. And I really wanted to share that because caregivers very often, again, have sleep problems. Maybe you might want to try out one of these, newer side positions or something. Now, I want to go into respitality services because a lot of people don't know what this is. So, respitality services are actually where you can take your loved one and they can spend a night, they can spend a weekend, they can spend up to a week, sometimes even a little bit longer. And it is in the US, it is typically provided through an assisted living community. Not necessarily the nursing homes, which are higher end care. So, a lot of communities, Sunrise, Brookdale, Altria. I mean, I'm trying to think of all the big ones out there. There's so many, right? So, this is hospitality. It's great for families who may want to take a vacation, but they're really concerned about leaving mom or dad home alone. And so you can take your loved one to one of these communities where they can be watched over and, helped out and get their meals. It's kind of like they're going on their own vacation, their own resort, right? If you can take them to a really nice place. Some of these places are like beautiful. They're like the Four Seasons or the Ritz Carlton. But here's the thing I really like about it too. You can test drive the community. So let's just say your loved one isn't quite sure they want to move, or maybe even resistant. Well, go test drive it. Do it for a weekend. Do it for a week. Plan it all together or whatever and see how it works out. But it's a really great way to kind of get to know the community and know the people there from just not just visiting for a few minutes and getting a tour. You're actually part of the community. Now, Respitality Initiative in Scotland, by the way, has one of the best caregiving programs because the government does subsidize and support a lot of it. But there's a charity called Shared Care Scotland. And again, they get help from the Scottish government, through the UK to National Health Service. They connect local carers, they call them carers, not caregivers, carers organizations with hospitality, tourism, and leisure businesses who are willing to donate a break free of charge, give carers a vital break from their caring role. Now, these are hotels. These are places that you might normally go that are hospitality oriented places, and you can take your loved one. Now, we had that a few years ago through Marriott. Marriott was doing something like this with some of their hotel rooms would be designated for this. It didn't last long. They wound up kind of getting out of that service. So again, in the US, it's going to be through assisted living. It's not going to be through hotels. But that's okay because a lot of these assisted living communities are like the 4-star, 5-star hotels these days. And so that's just something to think about. But that is respitality. Now, there's also something called respite services. You may have heard of that, but this is for you. This is for the caregiver. This is for you to get a break. Very often, in fact, I found a statistic that said that the formal respite services are very underused. That's an understatement. In fact, I think it was less than 10% of all the potential ways you can get respite as a caregivers don't tap into. So what is a respite service? Okay. It's where primarily your loved one is staying at home. They might be living alone, but also they may have a spouse who's also older. And so, maybe a little difficulty making meals or getting the grocery store because they're not driving as much anymore. Or maybe they just want a companion to play bridge with or, do something with or have them, do an online faith-based service or whatever. And they need a little help with that. That's what respite is. It brings that professional into the loved one's home so you can get a break. You, the family caregiver, can go run errands, do your own thing, whether it's, an hour, whether it's an afternoon, whatever it is, that's what respite is, okay? Now, a lot of the home care services and agencies offer respite care, but also you can get them through informal networks like faith-based organizations do a lot of volunteers who can sit with your loved one, nonprofit organizations. So again, for instance, there was one here in Southern California where they actually did a caregiver cruise. They got a cruise ship that would take a 3-day cruise down to Mexico. And then the Alzheimer's Association, this was for dementia caregivers. The Alzheimer's Association would pay for the respite care over the weekend for the loved one that had dementia who was at home. That was a great break, right? Taking a cruise. But also you can create your own community. So you can get your own volunteers, your own family and friends to step up and say, hey, I'll come over for an afternoon. Alzheimer's Association has something called All's Connected. We also had Tina on here from Caring Bridge. I'm going to have that link on the episode guide page, Caring Bridge, that you create your own community and you can ask people to volunteer to do that. There are some cash subsidies in certain states where you can purchase respite through relatives and friends. So, in other words, a relative or a friend could say, hey, I'll spend the weekend with your mom, or I'll take care of your dad this afternoon. And you can actually pay them. And it's through some of these grants that you can get. They're vouchers actually, and they're consumer directed programs, but different states do it differently. It's usually under a Medicaid type banner. So you have to take a look at all the eligibility, and you have to sign up for it and all these kind of other things. It's a little complicated, so I find it really tough for caregivers to try to do all that paperwork and do that just to get somebody to come over for the afternoon. Probably easier to tap into some of these other things, but it's out there. And of course, a lot of the respite is then delivered through the help of the National Family Caregiver Support Program, which is authorized under the Older Americans Act. Every year, we love that. And also the area agencies on aging, which are located in almost every county across the U.S. You call AAA's, area agencies on aging, and they can help you find respite services if you can't. Now, the other great resource is the ARCH, National Respite Network. This is great. They answer all your questions. What is respite? How do I get it? Can I get it for free? What should I know? What kind of person should I bring into the home? Yada, yada, yada. Everything you ever wanted to know about respite is on this website. And then they also will put you in touch with local respite services. So again, they will let you know who delivers those services. Can you get it for free? So that's the Arch National Respite Network. Going to have that. And then I came across something that really interesting. This is brand new. I wanted to bring it to you. And I'm going to see if we can maybe get them on the podcast in the coming year. But it's called Respitely. Respitely. Okay. Like, what is this? Well, they are a care gifting marketplace, mostly for respite services. But here's what it is. It's only in the US right now. And they are growing globally, but right now it's in the US. And so what you do is you can sign up and you can say, okay, I want to donate $50 to this caregiver who's my friend, and I want flowers to be sent to her. Or I'm purchasing in-home respite services to bring in a companion for her mom so she can go to the salon and get her hair done or her nails done or whatever it is. But you can be kind of that specific. But it's a dollar amount that turns into a credit, and then it's delivered to the caregiver, and the family caregiver then can decide when they want to redeem it. So they don't get cash. You can't do with a cash transfer. They do have to use a service that is part of the network of Respitely, but it's a really cool idea and a great way, particularly during the holidays, for someone to say, you know what, I see you, I hear you, I support you as a caregiver, and I want to gift something to you special this holiday season because you need a break. So here, this is going to maybe incentivize you to really do it, and it's a way for me to help without you having to tell me what I can do to help or all that, coordinate it and all that other stuff. So I kind of like this idea. I think it's really interesting. You can let me know what you think, but that's called Respitely. We're going to have a link on the episode guide for that. So that's respite care. Great time to be thinking about it. But let me just say this. Respite care is not once a year. Okay. It's not like a vacation where we take a week or two. And I haven't been on vacation in a while, so I forget what those are like, but it's not a vacation. You should be doing respite care at least once a month. I would like to see it once a week. And this is where the whole 7-minute self-care comes in, because respite care, we look at as a big, it's an afternoon, it's a weekend. Yes, it can be that. It can also be 7 minutes, 7 minutes in your day just for you. Take a break, walk away from it, get into nature, do all these other things that we have on our videos to just breathe. And even those little moments, those little 7 minutes will help keep you going, keep your tank a little bit full. But I'd like to also see you get some real, more formal respite, services and support. And these are all the different ways you can do it. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention, just really quickly, the Veterans Administration. So if you're a caregiver for a veteran, you get 30 days 30 days of free respite. And you can get the respite in home for your vet. You can take them to an adult daycare and get it covered, the cost of that. Or you can take them to a VA nursing home and they will care for them for the day, the evening, the weekend, whatever it is, and you get the break. So, again, don't overlook this stuff. It's so important for caregivers to take care of themselves as well as their loved ones, and that respite services are out there to help you do that. So, with that, I'm just going to say I am so grateful to all of our podcast listeners. I think I've mentioned this before, but we are now number 3 on the caregiving podcast. I'm so excited, and it's all because of you guys listening and helping us and sending us great emails about what you want to hear about. I just want to do, a thank you of gratitude, particularly during this season, and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving with your family and your friends. Thank you for joining us on this episode. A reminder, you can find more information in my book, Me Time Monday, The Weekly Wellness Plan to Find Balance and Joy for a Busy Life, or visit MeTimeMonday.com or CaregivingClub.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Caregiving Club on Air. Please hit the subscribe button. To listen to us on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, SiriusXM, iHeartRadio, Pandora, as well as other listening channels. Check out all the resources and article links on our episode guide page at caregivingclub.com. Just hit the podcast tab at the top and email us with comments and questions at podcast@caregivingclub.com. Thank you again for listening, and take care and stay well.